In this impossibly vast world that we know as professional wrestling, there are actually very few performers you can call truly unique, one of a kind, one of one, impossible to replicate. The Undertaker is an example that I think a lot of WWE fans would point towards straight away, and rightly so, with the gimmick, the size, the wrestling style, the legacy. He fits the bill to a T. The Rock is somebody, for completely different reasons, you could call unique, with that industry-leading level of charisma and his mannerisms and his quick wit that eventually ended up making him able to transcend the wrestling business and become the highest paid star in Hollywood. Sting is another great example of his gimmick, his Crow-inspired gimmick and all the variations of that. Or even Terry Funk for his jelly-legged selling, mannerisms and ability to do literally everything that makes a professional wrestler great. Well, today, sadly, we are mourning the loss of another true original, another unique professional wrestler with an uncompromising legacy of innovation and brutality at the highest level of the sport. A guy you simply could not take your eyes off of when he was on your screen. And when you saw him on that marquee, you either had to buy a ticket to the show or you had to tune in when it was on television. Unfortunately today, Sabu has passed away at just 60 years old. This report was broken by PW Insider a few short hours ago. Sabu is of course best known for his time in ECW, where he was at the very cusp of a revolution in professional wrestling. The entire ECW counter-cultural pro wrestling movement probably doesn't happen without a guy like Sabu on the roster, pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries as far as they would go, until oftentimes they ended up breaking. I mean, obviously, there are a number of very important, pivotal people like Rob Van Dam, the Sandman, a bunch of others to that company's success. But to me, the first person I will always think of when I recall ECW and that company and its unique place in history is Sabu. I mean, if you're a wrestling fan of a certain age and you are an ECW fan, you have been conditioned forever to, when the lights in the arena go out and the crowd go, "Ooh, who's coming?" you immediately think it's Sabu. It doesn't matter if you're watching a WWE show, if you're watching an indie show, if you're watching something in Japan, when the lights go out, you think Sabu. He was synonymous with that. But much more than that, of course. Sabu's appeal extends so far beyond one simple spot or even barbed wire or chairs or tables or blood and guts and all of those things. This guy had a really unique aura and presence about him. He was interesting and captivating in a way that few others are. We talk about auras in pro wrestling, and it's a word that's often overused these days. I think anyone who's even remotely cool gets called, aura, presence, all of this stuff. And it's like, maybe sometimes we should save that for the true, special, unique standouts in the sport. Sabu was one of them. There was nothing like the atmosphere when that man stepped on your screen. He came out from the back. He raised his finger to the sky. He had a body just covered in scars, which told a story in itself about his style of wrestling and the way he existed on the very edge of control in pro wrestling. He was a guy who, when you saw him on the card, it didn't matter who he was wrestling. It didn't matter if it was in the US or Japan. It didn't matter if it was a singles match, a tag match, whatever. Scramble, who cares? When you saw his name on the card, you had to tune in because you had no idea what was going to happen. The guy was complete danger incarnate. Sometimes that manifested in matches that weren't the cleanest thing in the world, right? Botches, things like that. But ultimately, I don't think that necessarily matters with a wrestler like Sabu. His whole appeal was that he was wrestling on the edge of control. He was homicidal. He was genocidal. He was suicidal. He was a complete lunatic out there. And if you tuned in and you were watching a Sabu match, there was a very good chance that you were going to see something you had never seen before in all your life. He was exciting and dangerous in just a totally captivating way, to where, like, we talk a lot about modern wrestling and maybe things feeling a little bit safe and sanitized, and it's easy to be jaded and think you've seen everything, and it's because of wrestlers like Sabu that keep people fans and keep the sport progressing and moving forward. Yes, he was primarily known for the crazy stuff, but when you have what he had in such a unique, purified form, you're going to live on forever in this sport. There's no way in hell that the name Sabu is ever going to be forgotten by anyone who came across his work or worked with him or met him or whatever. So he actually just wrestled his last match over WrestleMania weekend. It was for GCW. He wrestled Joey Janela, and I think it was his first match in about 4 years or so. He'd really wound down over the years. Obviously, he was 60 at the time of his passing. I think we all saw some of the spots from that match, going through the ring, landing on the door, and all of this stuff. Right until the very end, Sabu was wrestling as Sabu. He didn't go out and change anything for better or worse. And yeah, like I said, he'd really slowed down over the years. But like as you do when you reach the age of 60 and you work such an intense style throughout your pro wrestling career. But I mean, some of the stuff this guy would pull off, man. The Arabian Facebuster. I mean, just sandwiching people's faces with chairs and a leg drop. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely insane. And if you kind of go back and revisit this stuff, I think hardcore wrestling in particular oftentimes doesn't age the best, right? Because it's been pushed so far, you kind of think, okay, I've seen this. But not Sabu's work. If you go back and watch, particularly the ECW run, that's not to say he didn't have good stuff elsewhere, but particularly the ECW run, against people like Taz, who was his greatest rival, against people like the Sandman and Rob Van Dam, it still stands up. It still stands up to this day. You could go to his Monsters Ball match, actually, with Abyss in TNA in 2005. I'll put a list of match recommendations on the screen for you right now if you want to check some out. But that Monsters Ball match, I think it was TNA's match of the year, that year. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that's going to blow your wig off. And look, like I said, sometimes you would tune into a Sabu match and things wouldn't go well. And it would be a little bit scrappy. But that was kind of part of the charm. That was part of what Sabu brought to the table. He created chaos in a way that very few wrestlers throughout history have in between the ropes. He was such a captivating and watchable guy. And he's got, and he had possessed traits that any wrestler entering the business today, or any wrestler who's in the business right now, would absolutely love to have. Like I said at the top of the video, it's a very short list of wrestlers who are truly one of one and truly unique. And look, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of my favorite wrestlers aren't necessarily doing anything unique or original. But the ones who are regardless of who they worked for and when their peak was and all of that stuff and who they wrestled, they're the ones, their memories are going to sit right at the very top and they're going to live forever. And Sabu's one of those. Now, I don't necessarily believe in like boiling wrestlers down to their accomplishments, right? Their titles won and stuff like that. But Sabu was clearly an incredibly important wrestler for ECW. He was a 2-time World Heavyweight Champion, 2nd Triple Crown Champion in the company's history, 3-time Tag Team Champion as well. A boundary-pushing, scary, crazy dude. I mean, I watched the bulk of his work when I was like 13, 14, 15 years old. Even now you become a cynical teenager, you think you're too cool to be scared by stuff and all of this. Sabu scared the hell out of me in the best possible way. I mean that as just the highest compliment imaginable. Wrestlers can be great in so many different ways, right? Bret Hart was a tremendous wrestler for his ability to squeeze every single drop of juice out of every minor detail. Shawn Michaels, incredible showman. Terry Funk, versatile, incredible seller. Sabu, by the way, one of the best sellers of all time. Needs to be recognized for that, not just the scary stuff. Well, sometimes it came as a result of the scary stuff, but he sold like a mother. Tremendous stuff across the board. Sabu was great because he was a chaos creator, and there was nobody in the business who was as good at that as he was. I'm going to read you now some tributes from relevant people, and the wrestling world has been very quick to react to this, and understandably so when you have a legacy this big, which is impossible to do justice on this video, by the way. So we'll start off with the Sandman podcast page, who posted, "Condolences and love to Sabu's family, friends, and family. Sabu was a true pioneer in the industry, and beyond his transformative style, a kind and generous man, often looking to help other wrestlers. There will never be another Sabu." C.W. Anderson, former ECW wrestler. "Lost another ECW brother today. Rest in peace, Sabu. Always an honor to have shared the ring with you." Francine, formerly of ECW. My heart is broken. Rest in peace to my friend Sabu. I love you always. The Blue Meanie. Rest in peace, Sabu. Thank you. I love you. I'll miss you. I'm totally devastated. And the last promotion he worked for, GCW. He was an outlaw and a game changer. He inspired so many that stepped inside the GCW ring, and he will continue to inspire for generations to come. His legacy will last forever, and he will never be forgotten. Rest in peace and long live Sabu. I think that sums it up quite nicely. We're going to leave it there. The legacy and career of Sabu will be poured over widely by the wrestling business as a whole over the week or so, and it should. So, quick one to sign off. 60 years old is no age at all. It's no age at all. It's far too young. So, to Terry Brunk, that was his real name, Sabu. To those who knew him, to his family, to his associates, to his friends, my deepest condolences. I hope everyone who was close to him is you know, in the best possible position. It's horrible to have to sit here and talk about, you know, somebody else passing away at just 60 years old. But Sabu leaves behind an incredible legacy. His work will live on in young wrestlers for generations and generations to come. Even those who haven't directly watched ECW or whatever, the younger wrestlers coming through perhaps. Even those who haven't sat down and studied his work. If you've ever worked any kind of Daredevil style in America, if you've ever worked any crazy hardcore matches, if you've ever pushed boundaries in that realm, Sabu is an inspiration. Sabu is an influence, whether you know it or not. So rest in peace, up in Andy, and I'll see you later.